Hey there, welcome back to the show. I really do hope you are enjoying Perimenopause Simplified podcast. This has been a labor of love, as you can imagine, and we've been receiving so many really beautiful emails and messages over on Instagram from women who are loving it. So, in order to get in front of even more women and so that they can get the education and support that they need, please do share it with others in your life. Make sure you leave us a rating, preferably 5-star, and a review. It really only takes about a minute of your time, and we would so appreciate it. All right, so by now, you should know how important hormones are for every function in your body and how important it is to consider the use of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, especially in your perimenopausal years. So, I've shared my story in earlier episodes and what led me to do this work, but today I want to talk to you about what led me to start hormone replacement therapy and the difference that it has made for me. I don't think enough women fully grasp the benefits that hormone replacement can have, not just on your symptoms, but also on your relationships, your work, and your overall quality of life. After years of dealing with my own health struggles, taking hormonal birth control for over a decade, like many women do, and then dealing with the ramifications of that, I knew I had to make changes. I was not feeling well in my 20s and early 30s. And I realized that conventional medicine and conventional doctors were very limited and they were not going to help me in the way that I needed. So eventually, like many women do, I started to do my own research and go down all these rabbit holes. And I discovered functional medicine or functional health, which essentially addresses the root causes of symptoms. And then learning as much as I did and working with functional health practitioners and implementing different food and lifestyle changes, I was thriving. I was feeling much better in my early 30s than I was feeling in my 20s. And then during this time, of course, I was coaching women, I was running this business and learning about hormone health. I really decided to specialize in that because of my own history. And I was learning about all the changes that women start to experience prior to menopause. And then somewhere in my mid to late 30s, things started to change for me. I was no longer thriving. I started to experience joint pain. I remember getting these pain flares that were quite debilitating and they affected my workouts and, of course, my mood. If you have ever dealt with any sort of pain or chronic pain, you know what I'm talking about. It can totally consume you and take over your life. I was also one that never really experienced anxiety until my late 30s when I started to feel like shortness of breath and feeling panic. I would get really overwhelmed and have what I would call these breakdowns because I could not handle stress. I wasn't able to fall asleep as quickly or stay asleep, and I would wake up feeling really, really fatigued. I started to experience vaginal dryness that made sex very uncomfortable, not just for me, but also for my partner, Mike. And of course, it made things very awkward and it affected our intimacy and in turn our relationship. And that's something that we've both been actively working on for quite some time now. I started to notice hair loss. And for somebody like me who takes a lot of pride in my hair, it's one of my good characteristics. um, it was devastating. I would find clumps in the shower and start freaking out. Like, why am I losing, so much hair? And then I started to notice the weight started creeping up. In this stage of life, it is much easier to gain weight and much harder to lose weight. We can no longer do the things that we did in our 20s, right? Like eating like crap and then dieting and working out harder, and then the pounds will kind of start to just slip away. Not the same in perimenopause. It is much less forgiving. We need a different strategy. We need to be disciplined. We need commitment in order to reach an optimal weight. And then, of course, my periods started to change. They were getting heavier and more painful. And I remember getting really bad cramps and thinking, my gosh, I haven't had cramps like this since I was a teenager. And then, of course, there were brain changes. I could not focus. I was having a hard time remembering things. I was having trouble finishing certain tasks. And running a business, that does not fly, right? I have to stay on my A game. I have to keep up with research. I have to support clients and do all the things. And that just was not working. So the other thing that I started to experience was depression. And I have shared this before, but I have struggled with depression for years. That was just kind of felt very melancholy, and I just kind of accepted it. I figured it was because of my prolactinoma or being on hormonal birth control, and my hormones were pretty flatlined. But in my mid to late 30s, it got pretty bad where I just felt like I had this dark cloud looming over me and nothing that I did really helped. And then lastly, I started to experience urinary incontinence, which is so freaking embarrassing. I mean, when I would laugh, sneeze, or cough, I would pee a little bit. And at first I kind of like laughed it off thinking like, oh, I must have had to go to the bathroom or I waited too long to pee. But then I remember one day standing in my kitchen and I had on my pajama shorts and I sneezed and urine actually trickled down my leg. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, like, are you serious? I'm only in my late 30s and I'm already peeing myself. Like, this is something that happens in your 60s and you have to wear those Depends diapers. Yeah. Well, that was kind of a wake up call. It's like, all right, we need to do something about this, Claudia, because we can't go on like this. I'm kind of joking about this, but I'm not because this is all real. These are real symptoms that women experience. And yes, I believe it's good to laugh at things sometimes and laugh at yourself, but it can be so devastating when you have these symptoms, you don't feel like yourself anymore, and you're not really sure what to do about it. Many women go to their doctor, and as you know, they leave with little to no solutions, but there are solutions. And that's why I'm sharing my experience with specifically hormone replacement therapy with you today. So, I was doing all the things that I teach here, right? Eating a high protein diet, consuming really a good amount of fiber every day, walking 10,000 steps per day, lifting weights, taking supplements, prioritizing my sleep, and managing stress as best I could in this crazy world we're living in. But I was still experiencing these symptoms. And my point is that you can do all the things. We see it with women all the time. They're implementing all these healthy diet and lifestyle changes, yet they're still not feeling well. The weight is creeping up. The anxiety becomes debilitating. Sleep is pure crap. Your mood is all over the place. And you even have these cravings, right? The cravings are uncontrollable. We see it with a lot of our clients where they end up binge eating and then they gain more weight and it's like a vicious cycle, right? Then they're beating themselves up, they're losing confidence, and they're just freaking frustrated. Hear me when I say this. When your hormones are not at optimal levels, you simply will not have optimal health. I cannot stress this enough. So, when I was dealing with all those symptoms, I did start to dabble in some over-the-counter products. There are some estradiol, estriol, and even progesterone products out there that you don't need a prescription for, but they're pretty low dose and they don't really move the needle. I did not find much relief with them. So in my late 30s, I decided to address my thyroid hormones for sure because my thyroid definitely was not functioning optimally. So I got on some thyroid hormones. And then around 40 is when I started prescription progesterone, as well as estrogen. So once I started the thyroid hormone, my hair loss, my energy, and even my weight improved pretty greatly. However, I was still dealing with other symptoms like crappy sleep, my mood still wasn't great, joint pain, vaginal dryness, and so on. So then I started progesterone. My sleep improved, my anxiety, that overwhelm improved, and even my periods. Progesterone really is such an important hormone for women. And I know most of us are not making enough of it these days. And I believe women should be started on progesterone even earlier than 35, 40. I mean, there's women in their 30s who would benefit from it for sure. So the other thing was that I went on estrogen and my joint pain practically vanished. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, of course, I believe it was addressing the thyroid as well as progesterone, but then adding that estrogen piece really helped me personally. I know it's not always, that easy for a lot of women. Sometimes you almost feel worse before you start to feel better. I'll speak to that in a little bit, but I was able to increase my weights again. When I was working out, I was able to challenge myself more and start to build that muscle that we so need because I was no longer dealing with that awful joint pain. My vaginal dryness improved as well. I'm still working on that, like I said earlier, but it's certainly better than the desert that I had before. Nothing was going up there. The depression that I had been dealing with for years lifted. It really did. It's as if that heavy cloud finally disappeared. I used to wake up in the morning with a sense of dread. And I would say most days, thank God, I wake up excited to start my day. And I actually feel happy most days. Now, listen, I have my moments, I have my days, just like anybody else. I am in the thick of perimenopause. My hormones fluctuate even though I'm on hormone replacement therapy. So I could have some off days. Yesterday was one of them, actually. But for the most part, most days of the month, I feel good. So I share all this because I have seen firsthand what replacing your God-given hormones can do for you. And this education is not happening in most doctors' offices. They are not trained in how to properly treat perimenopausal women. Instead, they're giving you hormonal birth control or other like synthetic hormones, or prescribing antidepressants, anxiety meds, or pain meds to deal with all the symptoms that you are experiencing versus addressing the cause, which is suboptimal hormone levels. I know what it's like to be in your shoes and feel overwhelmed and, quite frankly, defeated. It breaks my heart to see women struggling. And it's obviously why I do what I do. But nothing will change if you don't change or take action. No one's going to fight for you. You have to fight for you. And I know you're tired and you have like no fight left because your hormones are low. But just keep powering through and try to get the support that you need. It's out there for you. You really do have to prioritize your health in this stage of life. You have to get educated on how your body works and really understand what you need to age well. Now, HRT is not the be all and end all. It is wonderful, but like I always say, food and lifestyle changes are absolutely vital in your perimenopausal years. However, you may not have the motivation, the drive to do all the things if you don't have sufficient hormone levels. There's a lot of providers out there who will say, oh, you have to make all these changes first before you go on hormones. I don't necessarily agree with that because many of you are already making changes, but you're having a hard time sticking with them or being consistent because your hormones are not optimal. So to me, it's like get on those hormones so that they can support you and make those food and lifestyle changes at the same time. You can start HRT and make these changes, and you will feel so much better. And I know that it can be scary because you have likely heard time and time again that hormones are unsafe. They cause cancer. A lot of doctors are telling women it's similar to birth control, and they're not. Those are not even hormones. Those are chemicals versus bioidentical hormones, which is incredibly similar to the hormones that your body already makes naturally. These people who are fear mongering are not hormone literate. And quite frankly, they are not up to date on the research. All that said, please know that what works for one person may not work for somebody else. Like everything with health, HRT needs to be personalized to you. So when you start HRT, it takes time and patience to start to feel the benefits. Let me say that again. It takes time and patience to start to feel the benefits. Some women actually feel worse before they feel better because there's so many different ways of applying hormones. There's different types, there's different dosages. Some people have sensitivity to some of them, and you need to work that stuff out. And it can feel a little daunting at first. I will be the first to say that, but that's why I do what I do, right? And there's coaches and providers like myself who are guiding women through this process. Please know that it is not set it and forget it with hormone replacement therapy, the same way it is with your food and lifestyle changes, right? Those things change over time, especially if it's like, say you're somebody who is trying to lose weight and you are working with a macros coach. You know that that's going to change over time as you lose weight, as you build muscle, and so on. It can take weeks or even a few months depending on the woman. And then as you get older and as you get closer to menopause, your regimen's going to change again. So it is really vital to work with a hormone literate provider who can guide you through this process. My own HRT regimen has changed. My thyroid hormone dosing has changed. I have increased my estradiol over the years as well as progesterone, and I will continue to do so as needed so that I can feel my absolute best. So if this episode resonated with you and you want to learn more, make sure that you go check out my brand new low-cost course, Perimenopause HRT Roadmap. It breaks it all down for you. It will help you navigate this confusing world of HRT, find a qualified provider, and you'll be well equipped to advocate for yourself and get the support that you need. You will also have the option to add on a private consultation with me to get all of your questions answered. As always, check out the show notes and I will see you next week. Hey, before you go, if you're struggling to navigate the overwhelming world of hormone replacement therapy, feel dismissed by doctors, and can't afford to spend thousands to get help, check out my brand new course, Perimenopause HRT Roadmap. This easy to understand self-guided course is designed to give you clarity, confidence, and knowledge to decide if HRT is right for you. No fancy health jargon that'll leave you confused, no black and white thinking that leaves you feeling alone and without options. With Perimenopause HRT Roadmap, you'll have a much better understanding of HRT, gain confidence to advocate for yourself, and feel your best in perimenopause and beyond. Get all the details in the show notes. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not, nor do I act as a doctor or any other medical professional. I am not providing healthcare, medical services, or attempting to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure any physical, mental, or emotional disease or condition. The information shared is not intended to be a substitute for the professional medical advice provided by your own medical or mental health provider.